Indeed, our democracy is maturing and electioneering process is, of course, evolving. And it's quite fascinating how, our elections processes have evolved. It used to be all about ballot boxes, snatching, boots on the ground. But now it's shifted to the digital space.
That's the new battlefield, I guess. Absolutely. Now, the latest CDD report on Anambra 2025 governorship election paints quite a picture. Now, it's not guns or thugs causing the biggest worry this time, but disinformation, fake stories, fake news, doctored messages, even religious undertones, all strategically crafted to sweep voters or discourage participation.
A stark reminder, again, that democracy now lives as much online as it does at the polling units.
Exactly. What stood out for me in that particular report by the CDD is how misinformation is no longer random, but organized and deliberate. False claims about security agencies being biased, twisted campaign messages in Igbo, even gendered attacks on women. Very serious concern.
Very serious concern, and those whispers about INEC being unprepared, all designed to shake public confidence. Meanwhile, INEC insists it is 99% ready. You will ask what happens to the 1%.
The 1%.
Following, of course, that detailed readiness tour across Anambra.
By the way, the 1% can actually mar the election? Anyways, now they have tested Beaver's machines, checked logistics and even brought transport unions on board. Did I hear you say as usual? Well, it's a big show of preparedness, but can they outpace the spread of falsehoods?
Disinformation, that's what it's called, or it could also be misinformation, and that's a big challenge because while physical security is tightening up, as we hear, the information space remains very wide open. Now, the report calls for community-level counter-messaging, using trusted local voices, of course, youth leaders, and even religious figures themselves to push back, the fake news.
And that's key. Elections thrive on trust. And when trust collapses, even the most credible process can be doubted.
So as Anambra State heads to the polls, or as we call them, the Anambra head to the polls this Saturday, it wouldn't be just about counting of ballots or votes, but about protecting truth itself. And in today's Nigeria, that's becoming the toughest part of our democracy.
Indeed, the Anambra are ready for the election on Saturday. Absolutely. So we'll be discussing the key challenges facing the candidates, voter expectations, and what this election could mean for Anambra's political future.
A very big question. Plus, of course, we will analyze the latest development in the race. Joining us later in the studio will be experts and analysts, of course, who will share their insights. They have been monitoring and they're, of course, evaluating all the dynamics that will play out in this election, of course, or as you may, that will shape outcome of this election. So all of those we will unpack in today's edition of Good Morning Nigeria. Thank you for joining us. I am Claire Adelabu Abdurazak.
Of course, I join Claire to welcome you to the program. We're reaching you live on the network service of the NTA. This is the largest TV network in Africa, and I'm Ian Ray John. In the course of the program, all right, you're still watching Good Morning Nigeria live on the network service of the NTA. And just before we begin our conversation this morning, which borders on the issues in the 2025 Anambra governorship election, let's quickly take a look at this background report put together by our correspondent Oyeyemi Ajayi.
The clock is ticking. Well, time might not be said to be running out towards the 2025 Anambra governorship election. Some ties already knotted, while others are actually yet to cross their T's and dot their I's. According to the electoral umpire, the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, 16 candidates from 16 political parties will contest the Saturday, November 8 poll. For INEC, all plans are already finalized for November 8, promising a peaceful, transparent and credible exercise. The resident electoral commissioner for Anambra State, Dr. Elizabeth Agu, had confirmed that all non-sensitive materials had been distributed across the 21 local government areas of the state, revealing that the bimodal voter accreditation system, BVAS, had been fully configured, tested and deemed ready for deployment. On its part, the Nigerian police force had deployed an advanced tactical team, helicopters and surveillance drones to the state as part of measures to ensure a hitch-free exercise, affirming the police readiness to collaborate with other security agencies and stakeholders to maintain peace and order before, during and after the election. Report says INEC would deploy about 24,000 HADOC staff and had accredited 540 journalists to cover the election. Worthy of note is that INEC had implemented a comprehensive plan covering logistics, technology, training, stakeholders engagement, and security coordination. The 16 candidates include the incumbent governor, Professor Chukwuma Charles Soludo, of the All Progressives Grand Alliance, APGA, is seeking a second term in office. At least 10 of the 16 governorship candidates, including 4 major contenders in the poll, hail from the Anambra South District. Civil society organizations, however, charged INEC not to allow issues that affected the state election previously to affect this year's election. And of course, this is a litmus test for the newly appointed INEC chairman, as everyone is watching how he steers the affairs for better landing in Anambra State. Can we say efforts by INEC, the police, even the candidates portray them to be indeed ready? Our guest will be discussing these and other issues shortly.
All right. How do you call it? The die is set. The die is cast. Yeah, please help me out. Okay, we're discussing issues in Anambra governorship election. We have our guests all seated. So let me begin with introductions. Professor Sherif Gali Ibrahim is Director, International Center, University of Abuja. He's also head of Contemporary China-Africa Research here in Nigeria, and it's always a pleasure to have you join us, Prof. And, well, I should be congratulating you for your professorial, achievement. Congratulations.
Thank you. Good morning, Nigeria.
All right. Also joining us for this conversation is Dengiefa Angalapu. He's a research analyst, CDD, that's Center for Democracy and Development, West Africa. Thank you very much for joining us for this conversation.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, Ray.
All right. I thought you were also going to introduce the man who is always wearing green and white before I move on to other guests that we have. But let me also welcome the Director General of Flag Foundation of Nigeria, Chris Agiri. Many thanks for joining us, sir.
Thank you very much. Good morning, Nigeria.
All right. Also here is Ambassador Jacob Haley of TAF Africa. It's a pleasure to have you again, sir.
Thank you. Who wouldn't be glad to be amongst two beautiful women?
Thank you.
All right. Also joining us for the conversation, but via Zoom from Oka, is Makodi Bierunu Unabugu, Professor of Political Science, Political Theory and Methodology of Political Inquiry, also the Vice President, Nigerian Political Science Association. Many thanks for joining us, sir.
Thank you.
Hear me? All right. Of course, we'll get back to Prof in the course of the conversation. Claire.
All right. Thank you, gentlemen. Welcome to the program once again. I'd like to start from Oka, where Professor Makode Nnabugu. Professor Nnabugu, thank you for joining us. And I'd like to start with you. Since you're on ground in Oka, of course, I'm sure you're feeling the heat. Can you just give us an insight into the trajectory so far? How has it been?
Well, the Anambra election is yet another opportunity for people of Anambra to see years. As you already know, Professor Chukwuma Soludo is the Abuja candidate and is trying to see how we can win a second tenure. But he has stiff challengers, especially from APC, YPP, and Labour Party. Incidentally, like you already pointed out, the popular thinking in Anambra is that the tenure is for person from the South Senatorial Zone. Soludo is from South Senatorial Zone. And the APC candidate is also from South Senatorial Zone. The Labour Party candidate is also from South Senatorial Zone. So the contest is essentially South Senatorial Zone contest. Even though there are other candidates, for example, the person from YPP is from North Senatorial Zone. For Soludo, it is a test trying to confirm whether his leadership style is acceptable to people of Anambra State. And for other candidates, it's a test for them to show that Soludo has not been doing well. And so the choice is for the Anambra people to determine, to say, through their vote. The challenge again is that the participation, the level of participation in the previous election was the lowest. And then part of the challenge is that to ensure that more people participate in the election that is coming on Saturday. Part of the reason why there was low turnout probably in the previous election, November 2021 election, 2021, was so much litigation. So many candidates were not determined until a few days to election. But this time around, virtually all the parties have been campaigning for upwards of at least 4 weeks. No challenge, nothing. So the electors, the electorate have opportunity to have a better understanding of whom they want to vote for. And so decisions have been made. There's no people, we do not have so many persons who do not know whom they want to vote. We're expecting, by my own projection, there will be higher voter turnout in the election that is coming. That, to me, is the major thing we need to appreciate. Thank you very much.
Prof, actually, what I meant by you giving us an insight into the trajectory is I remember Ezenwa Nwagu describing what usually happens in Anambra election as mass boost. But the governor had also come out to say that, there will be no area considered as no-go areas, from non-state actors. So do you think that voters, the area is, in terms of security, is the area safe now? Do you think that voters will, feel safe to come out and vote?
Yes, I think voters are safe to come out to vote because even some of the areas you may consider insecure most of the time, like the part of Anambra that borders Imo State, that's where we used to have so much insecurity. Well, you cannot guarantee 100% security, but from the way things are happening around here, in Oka and the environments, in so many other local governments, out of the 21 local governments we have in Anambra State, I will do by my own projection and observation, I do not think insecurity will be a major challenge.
If he says insecurity would not be a major challenge, I would like you to speak about the residents, the voters themselves. Do you think that the voter participation will be high this time around? Because in 2021, it was just about 10% thereabout of registered voters that came out, to cast their ballot on election day. Voter apathy is a big issue. So if you say insecurity is not the challenge, are we likely to see more people turn out for this election?
Already alluded to the fact that, in the previous election, there was also insecurity. There was also uncertainty. But this time around, the candidates have been campaigning for more than 4 weeks. And then the insecurity has been tackled reasonably in the sense that the non-state actors are not as vocal as they used to be, or they were some time ago, in terms of contesting even the election itself, whether the election should hold or whether it should not hold. In the previous election, there was also a situation where some non-state actors will contest that the election should not really hold. But we're not seeing that now. They are not contesting whether the election should hold or not hold. So what we may have is maybe isolated incidents of violence. But I do not think it would be so much to mar the election or the nature of the election that is going to come up on Saturday.
Thank you. Let's come back to the studio. And I'd like to take on Dengiefa, because you represent the Center for Democracy and Development that came up with a report that has highlights 7 strands of disinformation that it thinks is shaping the public opinion in Anambra State. And you mentioned religious framing to force security narratives, of course, the issue of the faiths, the Anglican versus the Catholic angle. I mean, how dangerous, are these, narratives to voter turnout?
Yeah, so quite an interesting question, really. So in August, the Center for Democracy and Development, went to Anambra. We will usually do this for every election. So we have a pre-election analysis visit. So we went to Anambra, we had Nnewi, we had Oka, and we also had Onitsha. So we brought people together to hear their views. So the reports that we brought out were actually, from the views of the people, the surveys that were conducted. So we came up with 8 eyes. So it is not just disinformation, but 8 eyes. The first one, we looked at institution, how prepared the election management body is, and we are talking this time about INEC. So we had conversations with them, and we realized that there are fundamental challenges. So first off, Anambra is a place where we've had serious challenge with respect to how INEC has fared. We've seen INEC properties burnt down, buildings burnt down, and all of that. So there is still this fear in INEC, kind of, when you discuss with the staffers. So we went again to ask about how they've been able to carry out the mandate of, voter education. And we realized that, voter education in many places were very urban. In the rural places, we realized that it hasn't really crept deep into those places. And, those sentiments were there. And there were even fears to go into places like Lilu, places like, Orumba, places like, Amoka and Asia, that were considered very hotspots of insecurity. So that's the fundamental challenge. Also talking about institutions, we looked at the NOA and how they've conducted that mandate, because we want to see an election that is competitive. We want to see an election that people would come out to vote. You've highlighted that the last election was basically 10% with respect to voter turnout. So we looked at that. So that's the fundamental challenge. Again, what gave us some kind of worry was the voter registration process that we observed. We saw that despite, first, the window was very small for people to come out and register, and then also in some places, there were a lot of crowd that INEC could not manage. So some people would say, they could not register. So that was a very big challenge with respect to how INEC managed the logistics of the voter registration. What gave us another concern was how the by-election was conducted by INEC and some of the issues that came up in that process. So we monitored that process. So for us, we are saying this is that one election that INEC needs to prove itself. There's a lot of voter dissatisfaction, especially from the 2023 elections. People are very dissatisfied, whether correct or incorrect. There are narratives that, against INEC that, INEC needs to really, dismantle at this particular point in time. Very, very, very important is the fact that, different institutions need to come together to ensure that the election, goes on as planned. The second is the issue of insecurity. Yes, Prof is right. It is not as bad as it was in 2021. But again, we had discussions even with the REC that says from 2023 till now, There are some wards in Anambra that election has never been conducted, especially in Iyala. I mean, she said it when she had a conversation with the civil society organizations. So it is for us a dangerous trend that we cannot ignore. And adding to it, really, well, it dawned on us when we got to Anambra Airport. We drove down to Nnewi. We did not see, beyond the airport, we did not see a single formal security personnel. What we saw was the Agune Shemba group.
But this was in August. That's three months ago.
Yeah, 3 months ago.
Have you done a follow-up check to see if these strands, these indicators that you are highlighting, probably could have improved?
So we have observers, we have a state coordinator that feeds us with information at every single time. So what I was saying is that we drove down to Nnewi, we did not see a single formal security official. What we saw was the Agune Shemba group. The Agune Shemba group is a state-owned security outfit. Of course, they've been in the news also for some negativities. I mean, the harassment of the core member. We also saw them, have some issues at the by-elections where they were used, against opposition and all of that. So for us, really, the security situation that we might see this time might also be the use of informal security architectures, to cause some kind of voter repression or even opposition intimidation. So we are also watching that carefully.
Using the Agune Chamber vigilantes.
Yes. Just to conclude on this note, I mean, we can't cover all of the eyes that we saw, but another factor that we saw was the incumbency factor, right? So for example, you saw the Anambra advertising agencies say, if you want to post a billboard, you have to have 50 million naira. I mean, for us, we will ask the question: how many political parties, especially the ones, I'm using this word very cautiously, the smaller ones, have that kind of money, to pay before you even, post those bills? Right. So there's a lot that is going on in Anambra State that needs to be unpacked.
Many thanks, Dinkefa. But you see, when you talk about the security, not finding any security operative on your way from the airport, that was, like Claire mentioned, that was before the election. Already, I hear that NSCDC has deployed about 10,250, and we're going to hear more from the police and other security agencies for the election. So of course, security in terms of seeing security operatives is not likely to be an issue on election day after the deployment, of course, of more security operatives. But let's pause you there and get to Jake now. You have interacted with INEC. You have your men on the ground in Anambra. What do you foresee happening on Saturday?
You're speaking like a prophetess. How did you know that? Okay. But it's true. We've been in and out of Anambra for a number of times. And as we speak, for the past 1 week, my main has been, my colleagues has been in Anambra. And we've gone round the 3 senatorial zones. And we sort of widened our intervention, not only for inclusion, but the election generally. We were in Nnewi, Awka, Onitsha, the 3 territorial zones. But beyond that, we also made some incursion in the local government areas because we wanted to make sure there's an established framework for inclusion, but also an established framework for credibility and ensuring that the votes will count. I would like to look at it from 3 perspectives, which you mentioned. Number 1 is the electoral institution, what we call the EMB, the Electoral Management Body, INEC. My engagement with, she calls herself Queen Elizabeth, which is the rake in Anambra State. I got all the assurances, all the boxes she ticked. But I also know that there will be problems. And I'm concerned about logistical problems. Today, actually, she called me yesterday by 6:30 a.m. that I should come to Anambra and watch the distribution of essential material from the central bank, which I think happened yesterday. So their preparedness is something to look out for. I think there seems to be adequate quote-unquote preparation, but we will see it on the election day. I did also engage the security operatives, the police, NLDs, and several of them. I think my organization was the first to do a live town hall meeting from Oka, and we had the REC, the police, the civil defense, and then, of course, we also moved to the civil society and the electorate. Everything points to the fact that there will be likelihood of voter apathy. And I say that because people are still struggling with the trust deficit that we suffered in 2023. And I like the fact that the current INEC chairman took the bull by the horn. First, I understand he did a thorough assessment of the Anambra State election and all that. And then, as of today, he's in Anambra from the peace accord that was signed yesterday to the critical stakeholders meeting that he's holding today. It's going to be a litmus test for him. It's a make or mar. If he gets it right, then he will begin the process of rebuilding confidence.
Jake, is it for the INEC chairman? Mm-hmm. Is this litmus test more for the INEC chairman, than it is for the REC, who is there on ground, the electoral officers who are there on ground? If the national chairman, yes.
I think I will agree with you to some extent. It's not just a litmus test for him, it's a litmus test for the commission, the INEC commission. It's a litmus test for the INEC REC. However, leaders take responsibility for what happens to their institution. And I'm sure he will not take chances. The REC, no matter how powerful she tends to be, she can be removed.
But you've called her a queen. In the a queen exudes some. Hold on, a queen is expected to exude some sort of capacity, intelligence, yes, to handle this kind of national assignment. Do you see that in this REC? Do you see that this REC, doing this job?
It's up to her. She's a personal friend, and I told her to her face, if you want to write your name in sands of time for the good of the name that you protect, then you better do the needful. Avoid politicians.
We'll come to that. Let me go back again to the issue of security, because Dengefa mentioned the Agune Chamber Security Force. And, we've heard the seeming silence of the guns in Anambra, even prior to today, just a few days to the election, which is credit. And most people tend to credit, that security force. I don't know. Mr. Gary, do you see this being politicized? Or where do we draw the line between the security force and then, politics?
Yeah, well, with all due respect to the views expressed here, I tend to disagree majorly. I was in Anambra in the last 3 election cycles, and I deployed people who are already on ground in Anambra. The Flag Foundation did. I don't see any challenge such as being painted here. With due respect, 4 years ago in Anambra was the hardest, the toughest experience I've had as an election observer. But the scenarios are completely different now. Anambra is good to go, security-wise. Talking from experience, from feelers on ground, up to this morning. As a matter of fact, I also have some intelligence people who are on ground, and I'm getting the feedback.
Are you writing off completely the reports or the items, issues highlighted by the Center for Democracy and Development, which are critical issues?
Yes. 3 months ago, That was when they carried out that report. And the election is next Saturday. The security situation in Anambra has changed largely as against 4 years ago, where IPOB particularly put their feet down. There was not going to be any election. For me, as I was living for Anambra, some friends look at you don't have value for your life. But because I insisted on going to Anambra to observe the election, because that was the first time Beavers Machine was being deployed, being tested. Even as against all imaginations, Anambarians trooped out in their numbers. I was a field observer.
What are your views about the use of Agune Chamber as a security force? Because even the governor himself, credits the seeming calm in Anambra State, to the use of that vigilante force.
Be true, the Agune Chamber, irrespective of their excesses, have become a necessity. Because the regular, security, the police, the army, they don't have the numbers. I mean, it's equivalent of state police, so to speak. All they needed was they need to be trained more. But they have sustained, to a good extent, security situation. Even the security situation in Anambra has nothing to do with elections. It's crime and criminality. There's no IPOB or ECN or unknown government activities. That is past gone in Anambra. It's mere criminality. And in collaboration with the police, the army, and other security agencies, they are doing their best. So I don't see that as a challenge in this election. I anticipate that Anambarians, just as they shocked everybody, will troop out in their numbers, just like they did 4 years ago. 4 years ago, there was major threats, and people trooped out. In fact, it was the Beavers Machine that failed Anambra. Of course, Soludo scored 112,000 to emerge. It was about 10% against 2.4 million registered voters. His predecessor in 2017 scored about 254,000 votes. Beavers could not capture about 40% of people that trooped out. And that was the first time it was being tested.
All right, but when you say troop out, it doesn't, statistics that we have, the percentage, of voters in that state has, been low, in past elections compared to those that are actually registered in that state. But let's pause you right now and get to Professor Ibrahim. I'd like to hear your take about this. Of course, I doubt if you've been to Anambra recently, but of course you've been seeing the reports and then feelers from INEC and all. What do you think will be different? Because, Jake talked about trust. He said voter apathy will be a big issue because of lack of trust. Do you think that in the next 2-3 days, anything can be done to, if not completely rebuild it, but at least up it a bit, just so that we have more voters come out to vote?
You see, the Anambra State in question is a very significant case. Why? Because if you critically look at Anambra State, it's just like a macrocosm of Nigeria in all ramifications. Why did I say this? Is because we might expect things to actually work perfectly, especially with the signing of this particular peace accord. But already things have started actually falling apart. Why? Because I want us to look at the triangular structuration between what he called the incumbent as well as the legal factor of the electioneering process, which is the Electoral Act, as well as the opposition, which has started unfolding. Recently, the Young Progressives Party came out to actually issue a petition, petitioning these particular institutions of already started vote buying, as they alleged that the incumbent is actually, starting with this particular project of vote buying, as they allege. And that was why they actually wrote the petition. And that particular issue was the issue of the incumbent governor promising 1 million naira for every ward, that is able to deliver, and 5 million naira for every local government that is able to deliver. And if you look at this particular case, this is a case that could actually affect significantly the peace accord, because already pre-election period, these particular allegations, even though they say it's not even allegation, it was actually a fact practically stated. And they argue that this is something that shouldn't actually happen, relating it to the Electoral Act, especially Section 2022, that if you begin to go into vote buying, maneuverously mishandling the electioneering process, you'll be liable to actually 500,000 naira fine or 2 years in prison. So if you look at this, some analysts and even the governor himself is saying, no, this is not vote buying or vote inducement. That this is actually motivation. Well, we don't see political motivation from actually offering a financial support to the voters. Why? Because your report card will actually determine what the electorate should actually embrace or what they should accept, not incentivizing the electorate with financial support. So that is why, in my critical thinking, the whole political legal arrangement, I believe, is actually flawed. Why? Because I believe there is the need for a shift, there is the need to actually reform the Electoral Act. Why? Because if we don't actually provide stringent, legal procedure as well as punishment for those who will try to mishandle or manipulate electoral processes in Nigeria, then the people mandate will not always speak for the people. The people will always lose their mandate. Why? Because you find an individual who actually manipulate an election, 500,000 naira. What is that? I made mention once here that such people could manipulate the electioneering process 1,000 times because they have the resources to mishandle the election, to actually abuse the electioneering process. And if you should say, or you should have said 10 years in prison, that would have been better. 20 million naira. This will actually disincentivize people from committing electoral fraud, electoral, offenses. So I believe that the peace accord sign is actually been threatened by this particular process even before it was actually signed. And I believe the Youth Party, the Youth Progressives Party, which came up with this particular argument, they have a kind of a solid foundation as well as a fact, as well as an argument to actually reissue even in the aftermath of the election with this particular journey that they have actually, embarked upon. So,
shouldn't this issue be the real litmus test for Professor Mipiton? Because even at that peace accord signing in Oka, he gave his first warning against vote buying. And this way he was quoted to have said, any individuals or groups planning to subvert the will of the people will be firmly confronted within the strong hands of the law. So shouldn't this statement or utterance, if the governor did say so,
those who that, are they going to face firing squad? No. So except if there is stringent punishment against vote buying, against abuse of the electoral process, then before people will actually desist from doing that, that will be the only way and manner that people will be discouraged from committing electoral fraud, in a state or within the political milieu. And one major thing, again, apart from this, the issue of security. Anambra is a big and a great flashpoint, which my brother disagreed, of. Recently, we saw people holding barriers outside the state, or even having wedding ceremony outside the state because of that particular level of insecurity. So anything can actually happen. Politics in Nigeria is actually and highly manipulated, either from the incumbent or from the opposition. Something might act. There was a time that elections were being stopped that people shouldn't even go out to cast their vote. Why? Because go and sit at home. So anything, but I'm happy with the security arrangement. 45,000 security personnel, even though we cannot claim that that is enough, that will suffice to safeguard and securitize the whole borders of Anambra State. But I believe with the deployment of technology, such as drones, as well as helicopters that will be deployed into surveillance, I believe this is actually effective, and this is a good initiative. But on the ground, practically, the security operative have to be decentralized, have to be deployed fully into nook and crannies of the state. Otherwise, we cannot actually completely do away with some hitches and glitches that might actually emanate from this particular angle of insecurity, because the people of Anambra State have testified the perpetual level of insecurity in the state, which not only during electioneering process or election season, this is a well-known fact in that particular state. So I believe there is the need for these particular deployed forces to be very watchful in order to safeguard and securitize the entire electioneering process. This is actually a good thing. Then another issue is the issue of INEC. The resident electoral commissioner came out to say the non-sensitive materials have been delivered, even the INEC chairman. But there is a tradition with INEC. Every electioneering season, INEC will come confidently and tell Nigerians INEC is fully ready. INEC is fully prepared. And all ad hoc staff are being deployed. Electoral materials are actually ready and available. But on the very day of elections, you'll be hearing electorate complaining.
Many thanks, Prof.
Electoral materials have not been delivered, or late coming of electoral materials as well as INEC officials. So, or even malfunctioning of the beavers, and other electoral election technology. So I believe this is something, but I believe that since the REC argued that all those machines have been, made ready, to be deployed, and they are very confident, to actually carry it and conduct these particular elections. But this is something that we cannot actually forget in Nigeria.
Okay,
I think we say one thing, but when it comes to the D-Day, we see different things entirely. So we urge INEC to actually, be so watchful and so resilient in the discharge of their functions, and in making sure that the technology is fully deployed and replacement and alternative machines and tools are actually made available. In case of technology failure, others should be deployed. And sometimes security issues also bring about the procrastination as well as delay in the delivery of election materials. And so with this particular heavy deployment of security personnel, we believe that these electoral materials will be delivered in due time accordingly, and elections will actually commence as scheduled.
Many thanks, Professor Ibrahim, for your thoughts. Just to let our viewers know that they can participate in this conversation, you can send us an SMS or WhatsApp message. The number is on your screen. I'm sure that Ambassador Jake would respond to the issue of INEC being ready and, not seeing, their readiness or their preparedness on the field on election day, because a number of times we've had election observers coming to talk about the fact that those in charge of logistics are actually those who, cause all these, challenges and the rest, not necessarily INEC. But of course, Ambassador Jake is closer to INEC, so he would speak to us about that. I'd like us to get to Professor Makurdi now, who joins us via Zoom. All the way from Awka. Earlier you spoke and you said, well, everything seems to be in order this time around, and, the elections are likely to go smoothly. But I'd like you to speak about how the campaigns have been so far. There are reports about disinformation, fake news, smear campaigns, all kinds of you know, whether traditional media or via social media, speak to us about how it has been. Has it really been clean? We also hear reports that the female candidate in this election, you know, there are a lot of, if you like, reports or if you like statements that, you know, would undermine her candidature for this election. I'd like you to speak all around that, the way the campaigns have been so far.
Well, thank you. The election period usually is characterized by all manner of campaigns, and each candidate wants to win the interest of the voter, and that also entails that while you are trying to convince the person, but essentially the person who the election period, you are only trying to win those who have not made up their mind. That's what the election is about. It is those, a whole lot of persons have already made up their mind. It is those who have not made up their mind that you are actually campaigning. And so when propaganda views go around, the people already know what they want. They can always make a difference, determine what makes sense and what doesn't make sense. For me, I think the major issue in this election is actually the issue of INEC's commitment to free, fair, and credible election. In terms of the logistics, in terms of the personnel they're going to use, if they are committed, then the next thing we can talk about is the trust element, which is a carryover from the 2023 election, that so many persons feel that their vote may not count. If these two things are taken care of, I think the election will go well. But if they're not taken care of, then there may be problem. That's that. Otherwise, so my commitment, my understanding of it all is that campaigns, like Soludo has been up and everywhere, trying to tell people that he has done so well. But the opposition they have always said that they are not sure he has not done so well. Like, for example, the issue of insecurity and so many other areas. And so that's been the contest. It's a usual contest. Nobody believes that the other person has done so well. Otherwise, there won't be any need to contest election. You must say things that the electors want to make you vote for them. And there is a normal contest in elections. But the individual, the persons, the electorate, you tell them what they want to hear or what they don't want to hear, but they take the ones that make sense to them. So it is for the electorate to decide whom they're going to vote for in the election. Thank you.
Prof, do you think that, vote buying, voter inducement, money politics, would it be a factor in this election? Given, of course, the utterances of the governor promising, rewarding polling units based on performance. I'm sure you heard Professor Ibrahim, speak on that issue. Do you think money politics will drive this election?
Well, money has always been a major factor in politics. But it is how we use this money, whether it is legal or illegal, whether it is sanctioned or not sanctioned. My understanding of voter buying is when voter engagement is different from what Professor Soludo has talked about. Looking at the figures in the previous election, participation was low, voter turnout was low. And so what I understand he's trying to talk about is what can be done to encourage more persons to come and vote. Not necessarily to vote for him, percentage voters, to increase the quantum of persons who vote in an election. Sometimes the voting polling booth might be far from the house of the person who is. So you can also encourage people, carry people in your car and bring them to the place where they're going to vote. That I don't think the electoral law is against that. When you encourage or incentivize people to vote in an election, I think that is in order. But what is bad is coming to the polling booth and then giving money to people or people who voted for you, and then as they do often, if you vote for me and then give you 5,000 and things like that. That is the one that I know that.
So from your perspective, rewarding polling units based on performance it's not an offense. It's not an electoral offense. But please hold on, because I like the view. I like to hear from Jake and the CDD, of course, who are election monitors. Jake, what's your opinion?
Absolutely. Prof, I listen to you with rapt attention and I respect your views, but this dimension is destructive and it shouldn't be promoted. Voter inducement is voter inducement. Soludo wasn't saying if you vote for me. He was particular. You know, let's not embellish it. He was very direct and it shouldn't be encouraged, especially for a sitting governor, more especially for a very highly intellectual individual like him. I respect him, but that was a slip of tongue that should not be encouraged. You know, it shouldn't be encouraged. It's nothing but voter inducement. And if we continue that, it will lead us and give more room for this political rascality that we are seeing in today's politics. It shouldn't. Now, in terms of my brother Chris, which...
No, just hold on. I know you respond to that. What do you think, CDD?
So I also completely disagree with that. You know, I mean, I respect the views of Prof also, but I completely disagree. Vote buying evolves in different ways. We've seen the see and buy on election day where you vote and then someone you show your ballot to the particular party agent and then they pay you. We've also seen a situation where even before an election, right, you see quick appointments, you know, very quick appointments that, you know, that are basically disbanded after the election and all of that. So it is evolving and it comes in different ways. And if we don't understand those characterizations, we will not evolve along with the political antics of these politicians. So I do not agree that is actually vote buying, because he who pays the piper dictates the tone.
But what does the electoral law say about vote buying?
So
how does it describe vote buying in content and in context? So
it really depends. The Electoral Act itself does not capture all of the new involvement of vote buying. But what it particularly says, is that, you know, if you exchange gift or money, you know, in response to vote, and I mean, if you basically exchange, you know, it is vote buying. But beyond that also, it also captures in a situation where, whether it is monetary, whether it is by appointment and all of that. So that the way it is now, it is subject to interpretation of the court.
But in your own view, with the way we've seen vote buying evolve over the years,
yes,
do you think there's a way out of it?
I think there is a way. I think there is a way. If there is a strict punishment for vote buying, right, it will definitely go into extinction. But we also need to we need to catch up with the way it is evolving. So for example, Prof has said this is not vote buying. So for example, if everyone begins to say, well, in the next general election, right, I am going to encourage every polling unit in my area with this amount of money, that will be the new way. So it would mean that we need to evolve, and as the Electoral Act is being, you know, considered towards amendment, perhaps this is something new that we need to capture explicitly, because we need to see how it's evolving. Again, I say the new trend that we've seen in the 2023 elections and even after the election is that when it is close to elections, politicians just do very quick appointments. They change local government chairmen and chairpersons. They change all of the areas and have different, in fact, they call them mostly appointment without portfolios. And in our interpretation, that is actually vote buying, because the whole intent of those appointments, the whole intent of all of those gifts to communities, including the use of palliatives during the COVID-19 period, is to ensure that people come out, you know, forget all of their sufferings, not rate you credibly, not rate you rationally, and then vote for you based on what
stomach infrastructure. Please, before I come to hold on, gentlemen. Before we come back, just hold on, please. Just hold on. Yes, just hold on. Please, you can be part of our conversation. As always, the number to send in your messages will be displayed on the screen. It's already there, 081. Of course, it will be. I was trying to get that number. If you can put it back on so that I can read it out. Yes, it will come up in a moment. But let's come back to you, Chris. Yes. Do you think that voters in Anambra, what would they be looking out for? will issues matter in this election, or will we still go the line of money politics?
For God's sake, we're discussing particularly Anambra governorship election.
Yes.
Come on the 8th. In the last 2 governorship election cycles in Anambra, I was there as a field observer. Vote buying was never an issue. We saw, excuse me, sir, we saw the mother of all vote buyings in Edo in the election that brought in Obaseke, followed by election that brought in Akeredolu. That one reduced. We expected to see it in Anambra. It was considerably about 5%.
Yes, but we're particular about Saturday.
Yes,
We are particular about Saturday.
Yes.
And the utterance of the governor. What does it mean?
Who gave you that statistic?
What
You said 5%.
what does it
How did
mean?
you get that?
I am an election observer. Forget all these things that in the booth where elections are being held. In fact, I also said it in this studio. Because we say, okay, maybe in terms of poverty index, Anambra is not low. Anambrians have money. So money was not issue of people who are hungry, selling their votes. We did not experience it to that magnitude that we're trying to paint in 2017, in 2021.
No, but we're particular about
the governor's utterance, yes, about that.
And how it relates to vote inducement.
Yeah, of course, West. Even giving a larger interpretation of vote buying, as outlined by the Electoral Act, well, that can be taken on the broader sense as sort of vote buying. But the act have not been committed. He came out to say that it is an act of motivation. Well, like Jack said, it's a slip of tongue. Please. I don't want us to lose sight of the coming election by painting these scenarios. Please.
No, we're having a discussion on what it means. Of course, because we need to clarify. Hold on, Chris. Hold on. We need to make these things clear. We need to clarify some of these actions because we want to move forward. We want the process to be transparent, free, and fair.
Exactly.
And where you are making promises to a polling unit that turns out the highest number of votes, and you are promising them millions of naira. I don't know.
But
then,
Chris, hold on.
Yes,
that is voters' inducement. There is inducement. There is voter suppression. There is vote buying. Don't tell me that there was no vote buying in Anambra. It has always been. And Chris,
no, it was not to that extent now, please. I was in the field.
Hold on, Chris.
I was in the field. I disagree with this scenarios.
It doesn't matter whether you agree with me or disagree with me. The point is, you see, the way we work in civil society, we work with empirical evidence. It's not trying to paint pictures. We work with empirical. I'm going to deploy 150 observers across Anambra State. We're deploying a technology that we're harvesting 10,000 observers through the means of technology. INEC have agreed to launch our technology on their situation room. Situation room will launch our technology. The EU, who gave me funding for it, are ready to roll it out. So we have empirical evidence. We don't work just like that. It's not what you called me and told me. It is the people we have boots on ground. So if you want to disagree with us, yes, you can disagree with us, but we don't work like that. We work with concrete evidence.
Okay.
We are funded
at this point,
with taxpayers' money.
At this point, Jake, we'll take a break.
Of the development partners.
We'll take a break. Yes, we'll take a break.
All right, many thanks for staying with us. It's still Good Morning Nigeria, live on the network service of the NTA, and we're discussing Anambra elections, the issues at the moment. By the way, the elections will take place on Saturday. Some of our viewers have sent in messages and comments already. We'll quickly take them just so that our guests can respond to some of the comments, or if you like, questions that have been sent in. Just read a few. Claire, I'm sure you also have some. This one here says, good morning. I just want to commend the panelists in your station this morning. I'm really concerned about the movements of the results from the various polling units to the local government centers and finally to the state collation office. This is usually where all the abnormalities happen. What assurance is INEC giving us, especially in situations where the beavers refuse to transmit results? That's coming from Michael Ocheobi. Another one says, as we approach the Anambra governorship election, expectations are high that there will will be credible, free and fair election. Report has it that a platoon of security personnel are already on ground to ensure security, while peace accord was signed by the contestants yesterday, which invariably guarantee good conduct by the players during the election. On the case of vote buying, the new INEC chairman has issued warning against such practice, proclaiming severe punishment for anyone caught in the act. Anambrians are known as peace-loving people. I believe they will reach up as expected during the course of the electoral process. Many thanks, Chike Dean from Warri, Delta State. This one is from Oka and it's coming from Ungene. It says, people of Anambra are never influenced with vote buying. They can take your money and yet vote their mind. What INEC must do is to remove any vote that is shown to the public. For me, that is what vote buying is all about. That's from Ungene in Oka.
All right, I have quite a few. Good morning, panelists. On the Anambra election, we should insist that technology should be fully used. It will help to reduce the malpractice during election. Anambra election will be a litmus test for the INEC chairman regarding his capabilities, integrity, and his administrative prowess. I wish him success. Jack Abba from Makurdi. I didn't find it funny to hear that in an off-season election in one state, over 45,000 security personnel are deployed and not enough, as revealed by one of your panelists. I am tempted to ask, how many security personnel will be required in a general election when the number of security personnel is said to be far less to Nigerian population? Why is electronic voting not seen as a priority during this period of constitution review by the National Assembly to reduce high negative incidents at our elections? For us to stop electoral malpractices and hijacking in Nigeria, let INEC, Nigerian government, design a website that can use our name, BVN, and VIN numbers from respective voters' cards at the comfort of our home, with our phones, without stress, instead of spending more for elections. This is from Etim Basi from Enwangbog local government area of Akwa Ibom State. We also have this one coming in from Matthew Titi in Edo State. He said, vote buying with cash or kind can't stop. Thank you everyone for sending in your messages. Please keep them coming. We still have more time. But let's quickly move away to other.
Let's quickly destroy what I would say is a very cancerous ideology that shouldn't be promoted even on a national television. Thank God for the guy who sent in his essay and said, oh, Anambra will take your money and still vote your conscience. That is a major problem. We must not promote and allude to the fact that people can take money from politicians and vote their conscience. You shouldn't accept money from anybody. You politicians shouldn't give money to anybody. Allow the people to vote the candidate of their choice. This idea that, oh, the economy is bad, so people should collect the money, after all, it's our money, is evil. We should not promote it.
What if the money is given in a guise that doesn't appear? I mean, we've seen in previous elections where governments or if like politicians come up and say, oh, we're organizing something, want to give loans to market women and all of that prior to an election. Would you say they shouldn't? It
depends, and it depends contextually. If that is being done very close to election, that's another technical voter inducement.
New trends.
Yeah, it's another technical voter inducement. It shouldn't be encouraged. The truth is, are there no honest politicians who would believe that the people trust him well enough to lead them and to provide the simple? Nigerians are very, very interesting. The moment you impress them a little bit, they give you all the
Jack,
all
let's quickly look at other
areas.
So
the morality of this should be tackled. The Anambra people do not take money from anybody in order to say, I will take your money and vote my conscience. You cannot. The moment you take the money, your conscience will move you. And now they have even devised a better way of how they distribute the money. They tell you, okay, go and vote. When you come and collect the money.
Okay, let's move on. Prof, Of course, we've seen a lot of defections to the, ruling All Progressives Party. So APC is making, serious inroads into so many states. And we know the alliance between the incumbent governor and the center. Do you see much of these inroads translating into what happens in Anambra?
Well, if you critically look at Anambra State, there are other variables that have not been mentioned yet. You look at the issue of the campaign, the political parties, apart from the political parties, the political orientation, and the political culture in Anambra State, all at play. Why did I mention that? Abuja, for example, has traditionally become a state party using political identity. Just like if you go to Kano State, for example, you discover that APC is not actually governing in Kano State. So the people of Kano State, due to one political reason or the other, have identified themselves with a particular political party, with a particular political leader, and despite the fact that there is great influence of the center, but they stick to that particular political party. Is the same thing applicable to Anambra State? You have the ruling party, you have the strongest opposition party, which is PDP, but still the people have been attached to actually Abuja, which is traditionally the political party that gives political identity. And even in the recently conducted by-election, that has actually been manifested. So it is with or without, voters' inducement in the state of Anambra, what we need to actually expect is how free are the people of Anambra State consciously to determine their future from that particular political identity, political culture, and political orientation which they have received. Should we continue to uphold political identity, party identity, going by Abuja, with or without political utility, which previously the incumbent has actually provided to the people of this particular state? If we should argue that, okay, the incumbent has been able to actually facilitate education with the free education, has been able to provide infrastructure, for example, the road and bridge is constructed, as well as primary health care, especially the antenatal, as well as delivery, policies. Then, all right, this can actually guarantee the acceptability of this particular candidate, with or without. So Ludo should have said, if you people come out, en masse in your great numbers, to vote, then definitely it is a campaign. You vote for me. There will be more hospitals, more schools, more roads constructed in your area. That is clear because these are campaign promises. But
I'm looking at the parties now and their strengths.
Yeah.
If you look at the election that will come up on Saturday, the Anambra senatorial zone, the election is zoned here to that senatorial zone, and the incumbent comes from that zone. Now the APC candidate also comes from that zone. Meanwhile, there's an alignment. There is an what do you call it? Alliance between the incumbent and the center. So what might happen? What is likely to happen? I don't know. Sidi, you want to?
Yes. So it is very, very interesting. And then I will say that what we've seen is how the 2027 general election looms so large in Anambra's 2025 obstacle governorship elections. And it is very, very interesting to an extent where you've not seen, so much of the support of the APC at the center, to the candidate of APC in the Anambra governorship elections. So we are seeing a new kind of alignment. And we tag this in our report, influence of personalities and the effect of intra and inter-party contestations. Now, the very first thing that we've seen when it comes to party politics is that we've not seen the Labour Party as strong as it was in the 2023 general elections. We've not
also, the PDP?
As strong because of the, issues of the central scheme issues that they've had, you know, intra-party contestation that they have at the center. We have seen how that is affecting, you know, politics in Anambra elections. And I would say for a fact, this is my personal opinion, the last very competitive election we had in Nigeria was Edo. From Ondo, we started seeing a very low level of competition. And democracy is about LD competition. So we are very, very worried at the rate of competition in this election. And for Tinubu and the APC-led federal government, we've seen a situation where, you know, we've seen a situation where it is not as the use of federal might that we saw before the argument. It is more now of cooptation. Let's not forget, you know, if you see, you will see that a member of, you know, ABGA is also a serving minister in the Tinubu's administration. So you can see how ABGA has been able to work very closely with the federal government. But in whole, the whole idea is that it has affected the competition in the election. The health of political parties in Nigeria have also affected, you know, the parties in the election. Again, it is the influence of personalities. You know, in the 2023 election, we saw a Peter Obi, you know, being a major force, and it was a rallying point of, you know, of the southeast. And it was difficult for the APC to even get the required 25% in the whole of the southeast, not to talk of Anambra State. But because of how divisive the opposition party is now, and how they are not so strong at the moment now, I think that even the Labour Party and the obedient people that should follow, for example, the Labour Party candidate, are confused on whether or not, you know, Peter Obi is now in the ADC or even in the Labour Party. So all of those have actually affected the competitiveness of the election. And in my opinion, beyond insecurity, the most decisive factor in this election is the fact that it is not as competitive as it ought to be, because of the semblance of a one-party state that Nigeria is actually going to.
But when you talk about, you know, competition, and you said the last competitive election was that of Edo, you don't mean the one of last year, I guess. You mean the previous one before the last Edo election in 2024, right?
No, sir. I mean the off-cycle Edo election before the Ondo one. So the one that happened last year.
Okay. All right, great. But you know,
yes, please go ahead.
Yeah, another issue is that you see, the issue of political competition, I believe it's not always healthy. Why? Because we embrace consociational democracy, for example, based on the principle of political competition and comparative advantage. For example, if all political parties discover that there is one major political party or a particular candidate, there is no reason whatsoever to antagonize that particular political party or that political candidate. We can actually collectively give our support to that particular candidate to deliver. We're all from this particular state. Put our hands on deck all together in order to support in building and rebuilding this particular state.
If that candidate is performing.
That concept of political competition, which emanates from Western political philosophy, I believe should not always work on us. Why? Political consociationalism, I think, is actually better, which is political cooperation.
But please say it again. Political
consociationalism.
Concession.
Consociationalism, not concession.
But
consociationalism, political cooperation,
but Prof,
agreement, political collaboration. That is what it entails.
But Prof, don't you think without competition, our politicians are not likely to deliver?
No, the competition is always determined by the strength of the political party, the strength of the candidate, as well as the popularity of the candidate, as well as the political party. But it is actually obvious, you know, if you look at the political environment, which party do the people prefer? That is why I made mention of political orientation and culture. There are people, no matter how bad a government performs, they'll still go for that party. No matter how the individual performs, they'll still go for that particular individual because of the orientation, because of the political culture, because of the political identity. That is why I mentioned that if we have this particular kind of movement, Claire made mention of political alignment and political alliance between the APC candidate as well as the incumbent. So if we see this kind of alliance, definitely the APC candidate probably must have made his political permutations and come to the conclusion that he might not be able to deliver, basically understanding the political culture, orientation, as well as practical realities on the ground. So what do we do? Should we antagonize toward the effort of the ruling party? No, we should cooperate, which is the best thing to do.
Thank you, Prof. Let's quickly, we have very few minutes, and I'll just come to you before we get to Prof. Nabugu, who is joining us via Zoom. And quickly, I'd like to start with you, Chris. I mean, I like the way Ezenwa and Jidojo, described, election in Anambra during the conversation here on Good Morning Nigeria. In fact, they said Anambra, has this, it's always displaying political dexterity. I mean, Anambra was the first to start the off-cycle election, was also the first to churn out, a first deputy governor in the person of Veji Etiaba and all that. Now we've seen some sort of silence from the other political parties. Is this also likely going to shape the election on Saturday?
Yeah, of course.
Are we likely to see another first?
Just like Prof stated, Anambra can be said to be the home of APGA. As a matter of fact, 2007, 2015, APGA did not field presidential candidate. They adopted the incumbent. But
the political space is changing. I mean, APC is...
Yeah, but then we have not seen much, with due respect to the APC governorship candidate in Anambra State. Though the incumbent with all the resources will always be there. But in summary, my point is this. The world is watching. The last governorship election in Ondo was a very good one. Let us maintain the trajectory. Let this Anambra election come and pass in showcasing what Nigeria can do in terms of its electoral process.
Okay.
Let INEC further restore voter confidence in the Southeast going forward. Let all hands come on deck. Remember, the last governorship election 4 years ago, the first ballot was inconclusive.
Chris, this will be our last conversation. Jake, quickly, yes. 60 seconds.
Well, Chris was saying that the last Ondo was a very good election. I don't know your yardsticks, but I monitored. I was on ground.
Let's focus on Anambra on Saturday.
Well, Anambra, the issue will remain how INEC will be willing, how far they will be willing to go. It will also remain how well the politicians will conduct themselves. I don't believe in this so-called political alliance because it's anti-democracy. I think the APC government shouldn't be pursuing this ideology of creating a semblance of one-party system, which won't take us anywhere. What makes democracy is a healthy competition where there are other political parties in opposition to a ruling party. You can't win. You can't be a winner takes it all.
But Jack, if you have a house, and someone willingly, wants to rent from your house, would you say no?
Oh no! I mean,
would you say no? No. The answer is yes or no. Would you say no?
No. It depends on who wants to rent my house. I can't give it to everybody. If you can pay my rent, 1, 2. If you can keep to the rules and the terms of the agreement, tenancy agreement.
But basically, you would not say no.
No, I will. I just gave you the condition. It's conditional. It's conditional.
All right, many thanks, Jake. We need to go because of time, but let's quickly hear the final thoughts from Professor Nwabugu now. Speak to us as we round up the conversation. What do you foresee happening on Saturday?
Well, what I foresee happening is for a long time, Anambra has been a fortress of APGA. And I do not see serious challenge to the APGA maintaining the lead in Anambra. I said this on a number of facts. The contestation, the competition, doesn't seem to me to be strong enough to uproot the sitting governor. Because the issues that are being played out, not so much strong enough to uproot. And then the Anambra people are also they are very discerning. They are able to know when to vote for A and when to vote for B. The fact that they voted for A in this election does not mean that in the next election they will also vote for A. It depends on what happens. In the presidential election, they voted for Labour. But in the previous election, they voted for Abuja. In the next election, they may vote for any person they feel like. And so the issues, if the INEC maintain our expectation of being free and providing us free, fair, credible election, I think the Anambra election will go well. Then, in terms of voter turnout, I think also the voter turnout, if the people of Anambra State are able to forego some of the misgivings they have about 2023 election, the outcome and the rest of them, and then turn out, be motivated enough to participate in the election, I think we are also going to have high voter turnout. I also think that the security will be good enough. I do not see anything that the security challenges will prevent worthwhile election. The elections will be good if the security elements are already in place to do what I think should be good enough for the people of the state. Thank you very much.
Professor Makodi Bierenu Nwabugu, Professor of Political Science, Political Theory, Methodology of Political Inquiry, Vice President, Nigerian Political Science Association. Many thanks for sharing your thoughts with us, and of course we wish you the very best on Saturday. I expect that you would also go out to cast your ballot. So that's it. I'd also like to appreciate our other guests right here with us in the studio, Ambassador Jacob Helit of TAF Africa. Thank you so much.
Please, Anambra State, vote the candidate of your choice. It doesn't matter whose name is on it.
All right. Dengifa Angalapu, Research Analyst, CDD, West Africa. We hope to have you after the election to hear your thoughts and how the election went. Chris Aguri, Director General, Flag Foundation of Nigeria. Thank you so much for joining us. And yes, wish you the best as you and your team also monitor this election. Professor Sharif Gali Ibrahim, former Head of Department, Political Science and International Relations, University of Abuja, Director, International Center, University of Abuja, and the Head of Contemporary China-Africa Research in Nigeria. It was a pleasure to have you. Many thanks for sharing your professorial thoughts with us. You know, it's the first time we're having you after that accomplishment. Congratulations once again.
Thank you.
All right, so that's our package on Good Morning Nigeria this Tuesday. I'm Ian Ray John.
And I'm Claire Adelabu Abdul Razak.